Well, welcome to topic 3. We're looking at the revolutions of the 1800s, the early 1800s to be precise. We're going to turn the century this week. We're going to go from all of the chaos that wrapped up the end of the 1700s and sort of continue new chaos into the 1800s. And if we want to just take a look at, just for a moment, how the world is set up, what has happened, where did we end up? The Democratic Revolution we wrapped up last week, and yet there's still ripple effects. Little people have done little dominoes, flicked little dominoes, and they've all started to fall down all over the world. Britain has done its part. It has lost the colonies. Then it lost most of the Ohio Valley, that area that's west of the Appalachian Mountains. France has lost its holdings in the New World for the most part. It still has a few. The slave revolt has taken place in Saint-Domingue, which is now modern-day Haiti. So France has lost that. The only thing that really happens is Spain is still kind of hanging on to some of its New World ambitions. But I want to take a look at the ambitions in general. Now that we've gone through sort of a majority of the Democratic Revolution, where is everybody looking? What are they trying to do? What do they want to see happen? What are their options? And that's where we're going this week. So let's dive in. So as I said, we're looking at, again, situations and what those situations from those different worldviews, world nations and kingdoms, what is their mindset? How do they perceive their circumstances? And what problems arise out of that? And what opportunities do they have? What options are there? And that will lead to certain choices. And that's where we're going this week. And one of the things I want to look at is I want to look at this, how all of these things are going to build to a gigantic powder keg as we're moving closer and closer to the end of the 1800s. 1800s are packed with a bunch of sort of setting the stage types of events. Mindsets are changing, and this is one of them. Look at all that green. At the 1800s, the introduction of 1800s, Spain still has a huge control of the New World. All that green is Spain. Portugal has control of what is modern-day Brazil. There's a little bit of French, a little bit of Dutch. Even Britain still has Jamaica. The Isle of Jamaica, there's still a little bit of hanging on, but other than that, really the primary shaker and mover is Spain. So what do they want to see happen? What's going on with them? Sadly, Spain at this time has a very weak king. He's not very progressive. He's not very forceful. He doesn't have a lot of backing per se. And Britain and France sort of see this as, this is an opportunity to possibly take advantage of Spain's weakness. It's not very strong. And so the major powers, they're looking to make some move. What can they do? Maybe it's in the New World. Maybe it's someplace else. Maybe it's in Spain itself. But Europe or France and Britain are looking at Spain as kind of easy prey. So that's the first one. Britain's going to make a first move. Remember we had the slave revolt in Saint-Domingue? Well, in 1802, Britain's going to say, well, let's see if we can go over and take it back. Maybe we can control it. Why would that be important? Why is that a big option? Well, because Saint-Domingue was huge in resources. It was the jackpot of all of the Caribbean. Those particular islands produce so much wealth that they knew that if they can get it, they would have, again, a foothold. They would have that place. Well, it fails. It miserably fails. So, Britain thinks, what can we do next? Well, in 1806 and 1807, it looks south, further south of there. Well, maybe we can go into what is now modern-day Buenos Aires. Maybe we can attack there. Maybe we can take control in South America. Well, that didn't work too well either. So Britain's been spanked twice. It's been very costly. So what are they going to have to do? They have to look someplace else. They have to reassess their situation. Do they still look to the New World? The United States spanked them. The slave revolt, the slaves in San Domingue, they spanked them. The people in in Buenos Aires, they spanked them. The king's got to do something. Where is there going to be hope and success? Ah, he says, let's look back to the east again. Let's look back towards India. So there, in this time, there's this huge emphasis and push to really, truly dominate the Indian region, Southeast Asia, and even working back into the Far East, working into the Qing Empire and Japan, trying to work that region. They're going to leave the New World alone. Well, what about France? Well, Napoleon, about the 1800s, he has just sort of arrived at that first consul. He is this gentle dictator, so to speak, the gentle, kindly sort of emperor, but not emperor yet. Where does his ambitions lie? Where does France look? And what can they see? Well, got to keep in mind, Napoleon is the thrust of France right now. At least he's the headlines. He's the one that makes all the news. He wants empire again. He wants glory. He wants the status. He loves the old Roman Caesars and the nobility and the glory of Rome. He likes that kind of picture of himself. He wants that for himself. He wants that for France. France yearns to gain lost claims in North America. That's a big one. He figures, he looks back, remember, Spain's weak. There's a lot of land there, a lot of territory, a lot of opportunities. So Napoleon looks towards the West as, let's go back and claim that again. Let's get control over it again. There are so many riches that France lost when they lost the New World, or at least those main areas. So that's his situation. He sees North America as that perfect place to establish his opus magnus, his great conquests and his great empire. But he needs peace in Europe. There's still a lot of chaos going on out of the French Revolution and the French Republic. There's still other neighboring nations and kingdoms that don't really like the idea of free France, a diplomatic France where the king's head has been cut off and there is no kingly established, no nobility to keep things under control. Remember, the rest of Europe, Prussia, Russia, Austria-Hungary, all these are still very, very dominantly controlled by old traditional monarchies. And they just they're not comfortable with where France is. So Napoleon, in order to turn all of his attention to the West, he has to kind of put the East at peace. He has to make treaties and wheels and deals and put everybody at ease so that everybody is calm so he can take his troops and move them across the ocean. He doesn't want to move them all across the ocean and appear weak and then have enemies in his backyard that want to come in and attack him. That's not good business. So he needs to get his troops to the Atlantic. He needs peace in Europe. So what does he do? Well, he begins to make a secret plan with Spain to regain the Louisiana Territory and control New Orleans. New Orleans is key. Key. You've got to remember that. It's key to everything that happens from now on. He also makes kind of a peace deal with Britain and with Austria. This is 1881, 1882, right around there. And then he's going to go attack San Domingue. He wants to restore French control there. He wants to get the slaves back into slavery, and producing and making money for France. And then from there, once he has that foothold in the Caribbean, with the treaty with Spain to get all that territory in northern America back under his control, then he can come into New Orleans and then take over everything and control. This is how it's supposed to look. If he gains New Orleans, that's that red circle on the bottom, then he controls everything that's coming out of the Ohio Valley. That's that new place, that place where the settlers are starting to want to move. Lots of crops, lots of resources, lots of things are coming down the Ohio River into the Mississippi, down into New Orleans, and then out into the world. If he controls New Orleans, he will control all of North America. As far as shipping, economics, you name it, he'll have it. Now, I want to show you what's happening here. So the darker gray, that's where the population is kind of concentrated. The darker the gray, the more concentrated the population. So this is by the time Napoleon really wants to bust his move. If he controls all of New Orleans, then he controls all of the shipments that come back around to the East Coast and then off into the rest of the world. That's his goal. And look at where settlers are populating now. They're populating in that Ohio Valley. If you look a little bit later, we're going to look at it, that this is going to populate incredibly within about 30 years. But right now, he also knows that the U.S. is too weak to fight France. So this is easy pickings for Napoleon, but he's got to get control. He's got to get that foothold. He needs to make the peace deals. He needs to go over and attack Saint-Domingue. He needs to take it. Sadly, I shouldn't say sadly for us, because we're Americans. Happily for us, Napoleon is defeated. He just cannot get it. He cannot make a foothold in the New World. He loses Saint-Domingue, the battle to try to get that back. He loses pretty much New Orleans, even though he has this agreement with Spain. But he has no ability to really back it up and reinforce it and make his dreams come true. He still wants empire. So his situation is, so what do I do now? If I can't get a foothold in the New World, where do I go next? Well, he's going to abandon his campaign in the New World, and he's going to focus back on Europe again. He's just made all these peace deals like, oh yeah, I'll be nice, I'll play fair, I'll be a good neighbor. And now he's going to go back and he's going to say, I changed my mind. And he's going to go back and try to tear it all up and conquer Europe in the name of France, in the name of the glorious Napoleon. So what does he got to do? In order to make that happen, he needs money. He needs revenue. So he wheels a deal with Thomas Jefferson and basically sells half of the United States, all the Louisiana territory. And that includes New Orleans and control of the Mississippi, control of that gateway. Now, if you can guess just by looking at this, this is huge. Look at what happens. Here's 1790. Look at where the population is. It's all like on the coast, right? Everybody is still pretty much abiding on that eastern coast, playing the good British partners, even though they've been independent for a while. But they're still on the East Coast. They're just beginning to get into the Ohio Valley. By 1810, now look how the population is spreading. We're getting down into Kansas. We're getting down into the deeper parts of the Ohio Valley, Ohio River. There is much more activity going on there. People are settling. By 1820, now we have populations and more density growing even in Mississippi, Louisiana, and the Ohio Valley is completely populated by now. And then by 1830, we've got control of it. It's all ours. We're just dominating that whole area. And if you've noticed, let's go back a little bit. Oops. So we're here. You're noticing the trend? The trend, if you don't notice, is that America is moving west. It's moving westward. Things are shifting westward. The focus of America, now America has its own new ambitions for the 1800s. It's sort of settling its sort of new nationhood, trying to work out all of its promises in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution, sort of settling and finding ways to unite itself. But in the same time, in that same moment, those ideas of the Philosophes and the democratic revolution are really firing up the American spirit, this idea of manifest destiny. We're going to take our wonderful ideas, our Christianity, we're going to take our diplomacy and our democracy, and we're going to take it westward into the native lands, into the raw savagery of the West. And we're going to bring this good news of American destiny into the West. And so their focus turns from Britain and England and from France, from Europe, and it's turning westward. That's going to be a big importance because eventually they're going to hit California and you're going to come to another spot where they're going to go, where do we go from here? Guess what? It's going to be even further west into the Far East, into China, into Japan, into Indonesia, and those particular areas. That's where sort of the European movement from Europe over to the New World, across the New World, and now into the other side, the other approach to the Far East. Whereas Britain is looking eastward into India, into the Far East, and going this way. So there's two forces now. England and its forces are moving east, and America is moving west, and eventually they're going to meet up in the Far East, in China and things like that. But that is a very significant change. So what happens here? Napoleon's not done. We got to look at Napoleon. Where is he? What is he doing in Europe? What is his deal there? So that's where we're going to go in our next video.